is appointed as per the prescribed qualifications and the disqualification mentioned in the Companies Act 2013. So this particular statutory auditor, that is what we are bothered and focused about, is supposed to carry on auditing as so far as the auditing procedure is concerned, and write down his audit report when he has finished done auditing at the end. But it might happen, in the course of doing his audit, he might find, or it is quite obvious that he finds some of the branches of the company. Now, what is the branch? What is the meaning of a branch? That you have a parent company, and that parent company has offshoots. It means the head office is in Mumbai, and it has a branch office in Kolkata, it has a branch office in Chennai, maybe in Bangalore, maybe in Tripura, anywhere. So all these other aspects, all these other establishments of that particular parent company has to be reflected in the books of accounts of that parent company. In other words, when you combine all the work of the branches, all the books of accounts of the branches, then you can formulate an opinion as to what it is all about. So, the statutory auditor, or you can say for layman's sense, the main auditor who is doing business, he or she is supposed to do business. I mean to say, carry out his business, or carry out his audit work rather, to you can say include, or you can say accommodate all the work which has been carried out in the branch offices. Now, so far as these branch offices are concerned, then who will do an audit for this branch office? If it is possible, if it is possible by the statutory auditor, he may go running doing a branch audit to the other, I mean to say, the branches. If it is feasible for him, he may do it. So say he is doing a branch audit in Delhi's office, he takes a flight and goes to Chennai, does the audit work, comes back, and he can roam around throughout the country or in various cities, so that he can find an opinion. He may do it at his sweet will, nobody is there to restrict him. Or there is an or, he may appoint an I mean to say, an branch auditor may be appointed. Now, who is this branch auditor? How will you appoint it, or what are the process? The same process as the company auditor, or you properly say statutory auditor, or in layman's sense the main auditor is appointed in a similar manner with same qualifications and disqualification, which will be taken care of by other professor. Okay, those same qualification will apply to the branch auditor also. Now, once this branch auditor gives an opinion of this, of what has happened in that particular branch, it is being accommodated, it is being incorporated, it is being merged with the main company, or you can say the main parent head. Once, and it is mandatory to the statutory order that he must compulsorily consult the branch auditors so far as auditing process is concerned. So, and what are the rights and duties? What are the, I mean to say, powers of the branch auditor? The same powers which the statutory auditor has, so also the branch auditor also has. So a branch auditor is doing a branch of a particular, or doing the audit of a particular branch. Similarly, the auditor, the main auditor, or the, you say, the statutory auditor, does the work for the parent company, or you can say the head office. Once you do, all the things are merged up, and then it is reflected. Now, if the statutory auditor does not adhere, does not follow the rules as to how that, and he does not incorporates the work of the branches which is being carried out, then the report is not considered to be good report, and it is not a valid report. Quite an obvious fact, students, you can understand from common sense itself. Okay, so that is the mantra, that is the suggestion, you can say, that is the catching point of this particular branch audit. One auditor will incorporate all the work of other branch auditors, and then he reflects his books of account, he prepares his audit report. How the branch auditor will be appointed? Same process as the statutory auditor is appointed. How the things will be done at the end? All the aspects of all the branches, head office, and everything will be combined, and a report will be given. Now, Is it mandatory to have, I mean to say, faith in the branch auditor by the statutory auditor? If he doesn't have faith, he himself will go and check it. So that is all about the concept. Now let us see what is being written over here. If I read it, you can easily understand. They say, as per Companies Act 2013, every registered company has to maintain the books of account and other relevant documents of its every branch that I was telling you, in addition to the books of accounts of its head office. So two places we are stuck with, as I was saying, that head office books of account will be prepared and every branch books of account will be prepared. Then at the end you merge so that you formulate a opinion about the state of affairs of the company. It is very simple, students. Anyone can understand. Just I'm telling you in detail so that you have a clear picture. The books of accounts, documents, and other relevant documents shall be maintained in the same manner, as I was saying, as the head office for every financial year, which gives a true and fair view of the state of affairs of the business. So branch is no other different from the parent company. It is the same as the parent company. So everything what is there in the branch office, same will be carried out in the head office also. Such books of account shall be audited either by the company auditor, or the company may appoint a separate auditor. As I was saying, that if the statutory auditor, I mean to say, is so much confident and he has so much of time so that he can do the audit work of his branch and his head office also, then he can do it. Or the company, namely the shareholders, may appoint, or the board of directors can also appoint on the recommendation of central government to a separate auditor to this effect, and such auditor shall be called what? Simple common sense branch auditor. Okay, I hope it is clear to you. Now what is branch office then? They say as per section 2 subsection 14 of, we say 214 of the Companies Act 2013 defines the branch office. We common sense we can understand, as per the section, branch office in relation to a company, it has to be a relation with the company, means an establishment described as such by the company. So any establishment means the thing which is running as an office. So I didn't go detail into, again I could have given you a definition of establishment, what is the meaning of establishment. No need to bother so much. You can understand what is branch office. Now what is the process of appointment of branch auditor? Is the same. So we shall read, there shall be no separate procedure for appointment of branch auditor. Why? Because the work is the same. What the head office is doing, the branch office is also doing the same. So why there will be a difference in the process? The process shall be the same as applicable for the appointment of statutory auditor, or I was saying main auditor, in order to make you have a grip over the concept. The statutory auditor, or why they call it statutory auditor, it is the statute, or it is the law, it is the Companies Act which prescribes the the process of how to do an appointment. Now, provisions relating to branch audit. There are a few provisions related to branch. Now, remember this section, students. 143, 143, 143. 143 deals with all these things. Okay. 143, 1, 3. You will find others also. You will find 8. Okay. You will find a subsection 12. It's like that. So the main thing which deals with branch audit is what? Section 143. Section 143. That every auditor of a company shall have a right, very important, have a right of access at all times to the books of accounts and vouchers of the company, whether kept at the registered office or at any other place. Remember, as I was saying, whether it is in the registered office or some other place, you can have an access to the books of account, and shall be entitled to require from the officers of the company such informations. So the statutory auditor will ask the officers, now where are the information, where have you kept the books of account, what are the things over there, you show it to me. Okay, an explanation as he may consider necessary for the performance of his duties as auditor. So you can understand well. So we move on, section 143.3. What is written? the auditor's report shall state. Here, this is the reason why the branch, I mean to say the branch activities, you can say the branch things are incorporated because of this particular section, where he has sought what the auditor's report, the final report which the statutory auditor will give. What will it be written? Where he has sought and obtained all the information and explanations which to the best of his knowledge and belief were necessary for the purpose of his audit. So all the information from where it will drop from the sky? No, he has to visit branches also. So whether in his opinion proper books of accounts as required by law have been kept by the company so far as appears from his examination of those books, and proper returns adequate for the purpose of his audit have been received from the branches. There you are, students. Okay, so the branches needs to be incorporated. So that is how we understand that not only the main books of accounts, the parent books of accounts, the branches also should be considered. So we move on. Again, there is one more section we need to take care about it. As per provisions of Companies Act 20, section 143(8). So 143 is the main section I told you. So this 8 says what? Where a company has a branch office, the accounts of that office shall be audited either, as I was saying, who will audit? By the company auditor itself, if he has that much of capacity, any other person qualified to be appointed as an auditor as per the provisions of the Act and appointed as per section 139. So this section will be taken care of by some other professor, okay, who will deal as to how to appoint a branch, I mean to say statutory auditor. So those things are mentioned. The same provisions I need not tell you. Okay, so the company auditor himself will do, or he may appoint some other person to do. If we move on, you see the duties and powers of company's auditor with reference to the audit of the branch and the branch auditor, if any. If there is a branch, then only. If you don't have a branch, how will you have? Shall be contained in sections 1 to 4 of section 143. That is what is written in this section, the summary. Actually, the right of access to books of account. It means it is not that the branch office will say, the employees over there will say, no, you go and check only the head office, not the branch office. They cannot say. Common sense, students, you can understand. Ensure about the mandatory books of accounts maintained, prepare audit report, and state the reasons of qualification in the report, if any, etc. Next, we say the provisions of section 12 of section 143 read with rule 12. What is written in rule 12? Here under regarding reporting of fraud by the auditor. So if there is a fraud in the branch office, the auditor will definitely report it, shall extend to such branch auditor to the extent it relates to the concerned branch. If it relates to the branch, obviously it will be reflected in the, the audit report. This is all about branch audit, a branch audit, or you can say the audit of the branches. Is it clear to you, students? If you have any problems, you may ask me. Then I will move on to joint audit. Can you understand me? Can you follow me, students? See, he wants to join now. Can you follow me, students? Can somebody tell me yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's easy, students. It's easy. Now we come to joint audit. Now, what is joint audit? What happens actually. I'll tell you. The definition is given, and so that you don't confuse with joint audit and dual audit. So I've given you the definition of dual audit. You can get it from any source. Just to make you understand, I write down over here. Okay, it is easily available anywhere and everywhere. So you may get a hold of it, or you may read this also. Not a problem. It's written in simple language, so I've picked up. Now, what is joint audit? Let me explain it to you, and then we can read this definition which is there in front of you. Say, for example, you are a very big company. So you are, a very big multinational company. Say you are Godrej, say you are Hindustan Lever, say you can say any other company. You are a Tata company or any other company which is very, very big. Now, actually, you will appoint a statutory auditor. So as a matter of fact, you can appoint an individual also, as well as an partnership firm can also be appointed as auditors. Once you read how the appointment of auditors, you will come to. Let me give you a small idea of appointment also. Otherwise, you will not understand the joint. So there are two conditions. You can appoint an individual, a person like you, me, X, Y, Z, can become a chartered accountant, and then that person will become the auditor. Two things has to be maintained. He has to be a chartered accountant. He must hold practice certificate. Every year you need to pay a membership fees to the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, so that they give you a practice certificate. That what is practice certificate? You have a registration number and you have a seal. You can put that seal and registration number. Okay, and then you can become a. Every person who has passed out a chartered accountant exam, final exam, is not a practicing chartered accountant. He must get a, I mean to say, license type of thing. He must get an approval and he gets a number also. You must be knowing these things are. So that person can be appointed as an auditor of the particular company, or say any registered company. Next comes, you can also appoint a partnership firm as an auditor of the company. So this partnership firm, in that partnership firm, it is not necessary that all the partners will be the chartered accountants. The majority of the partners must be the chartered accountants. Then only you can appoint that particular partnership firm as an auditor. Say, for example, there are 7 partners in that particular partnership firm, and out of that 7, 4 are auditors, and maybe the 5th one is an advocate. The 6th one, maybe he is an you can say cost accountant, or these days they say management accountant. Maybe the 7th person is an MBA or any other, you can say, specialized field. So the thing is, maybe a company secretary. So, but out of the 7, so half is 50% is 3.5. They are 4 people are there who are qualified chartered accountant. It means they have 2 kind of things related with them. One, they have passed out C exam. Second, they have hold the practice. So these partnership firms can be appointed as an auditor of a particular company, or you can say the registered companies. Now this, when you appoint these partnership firms as an auditor of your company, the problem is that you will see in practical sense, I have seen that all the majority of them are I mean to say chartered accountants, but all of them. So it is not possible for one partnership firm to do audit of such a big company like Hindustan Lever, you can say the ITC company, and so it's very difficult. So because there is a ceiling or there is a restriction on the number of partners. So the thing is, when 2 or more such audit firms, or you can say partnership firms, try to carry out the auditing work, and all of them give a single report. Say there are 2, let us, for the sake of convenience, we say 2 audit firms, audit firm A and audit firm B. Both of them give a combined opinion of the company, say ITC company, and then a report is made. It is not that A will prepare differently and B will prepare differently. No, A will prepare, B will check, B will prepare, A will check. Then both of them will sit together, and how many audit report they will prepare? One. Only one. Even if there are 10 partnership firms who are doing, I mean to say, joint audit, they will give only one report. That will be the final report after consultation with consultation, or you can say cross review. I've written it over here also. After consultation and cross review, then all of them will together give a report, which will be the final report. And you might tell me, sir, then who will sign? All of them will sign. Not a problem. They will sign who all are, I mean to say, the auditors. So this is called joint audit. Okay, so now let us read. I think it is clear to you. In joint audit, what happens? 2 or more audit firms, not individual auditors, my dear, are appointed to share responsibility for a single audit engagement. Single audit, and to produce a single audit report. So as I told you, A company, B company together will sit together, have an opinion, and then one report will be published. Joint audits typically involve joint planning. So both of them will plan. They say, okay, you do this, and I will do this, or they might be recommended by board of directors and the shareholders to do their work accordingly. So maybe, I appoint a joint audit and somebody to check my books of accounts and somebody to check my sales. Somebody will check my purchases and things like that. Field work allocated with the this field work actually means vouching and verification. Actually, there is a chapter, my dear students, verification. I'm not supposed to do that chapter. Some other professor will take care about it. There you will understand how the field work of verification comes to, that how you go to the office, you check the you check the whether the building is there, you check the deed, etc., etc. I don't want to go into detail of all those things. Field work allocated between the firms and a cross review. So A checks with B, B checks with A. Say if there are 10 people, they will check themselves by each firm of the other's work. So that thing is that it's not so, it is very much reliable. You can understand the firms jointly report to the audit committee and are both party to the audit report. So everyone is a party to the audit report. It means nobody can just go scot-free and say, no, he has given opinion, so I am not responsible. Everyone is responsible for that. So that is what we have, joint audit. Now, there is a confusion with dual audit. So let us please, clarify. What is joint audit? Once I read it, you can understand. A joint audit is different from dual audit. So dual audit is different, joint audit is different. Where a dual audit is performed by two independent auditors issuing their own separate reports, which are then used by another auditor that ultimately reports on the entity as a whole. I'll give you an example. Say there are two persons, A and B. So A is giving one separate opinion, not a combined opinion. In joint, we give combined, and in separate, A gives his separate opinion, B gives his separate opinion. So, and these two opinions are taken care of by who? C. So another third person is there. He will combine the opinion of A and B and give the ultimate opinion. That will be called dual audit. Okay. So in your syllabus, they have not given a very good thrust on dual audit, but for the sake of your knowledge and experience, student, I share dual audit. In your syllabus, there is no dual audit. It is only joint audit. I hope the things are clear to you. Okay, so that is all we have for today, my dear students. It's simple. As soon as I end the class, definitely I will give you, this particular material in your Google Classroom. Okay, so if you have any problems, please do ask me. Okay, and if you don't have any problems, I'm stop presenting. I'm giving you the attendance link in your Google Classroom.